And Jimmy, after this tremendous event, when Jesus comes and snatches Christians off of the earth, the world is in turmoil, and the Bible doesn't leave us hanging as to what's going to happen. It starts to talk about a time period called the 7-year tribulation period, where God starts to try and judge and bring judgment on the world at that time. And one of the ways we know that we're approaching that is God also talks about nations, what they're going to be doing in this time period after the rapture. And I want to approach this from the news and then tie it to Scripture. In the news, Iran could not be more prominent in the news. Everybody is afraid that this 6-month deal is going to fail, or it's just going to allow them to continue with their centrifuges, gaining enrichment of their uranium so that they can have this nuclear bomb. They say they're only 2 months away from getting it right now. And we all know what Israel is saying. Tell me why it's not just newsworthy around the world and people in the Middle East are afraid of Iran getting the bomb, but why does this have significance for people who read their Bible?
Well, when you read the Bible, you have to go back to the 38th chapter of the book of Ezekiel, which lays out what you were referring to as the nations gathering against the Jewish state, an alignment of nations, a coalition that will be formed after the rapture and during that 7-year period of time. And early on in that 7-year period, we're talking about, I believe, within the first 6 months. One of those nations that would be listed, Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 5, is referred to as Persia. Now, until 1936, the nation we want to focus on today, Iran, was called Persia. In fact, the Iranians still speak the Persian language. But when you go back to the book of Ezra, chapter 2, you see early on in history, there was a relationship between the Persians and the Jewish people. It was King Cyrus, prophesied 150 years before the fact, by name, that was the one who allowed the Jews after the Babylonian captivity to return and build their temple and then establish their nation once again there in the Middle East. Now, he was a friendly Persian leader to the Jewish people. But when we come update, we speed forward and look at what's happening today. We all think probably about 1979, when there were a group of Iranian young people who took over the American embassy, kept charge of it, controlled it for over 400 days. One of those young people, in fact, the leader of that group that overthrew the American embassy, was a man named Ahmadinejad. And if you'll remember, he has just completed his 8 years as the leader, the president of the Iranian people. And during that time, he continued with radical rhetoric to attack the Jewish state of Israel. He talked about them being wiped off the face of the earth. One of the Ayatollahs, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, who is actually the head of the Supreme Council, the real power in the state of Iran, he said that we can wipe Israel off the face of the earth in about 90 seconds. And this radical rhetoric continued to perpetrate the world's news. All the people in the news gathering information responsibilities of the world would talk about what Ahmadinejad was saying. He denied the Holocaust. That never happened. And he was somewhat